What's happening, everyone? Thanks as always for passing by the channel, much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. Don't forget as well, please, to like and share the videos. Thank you everyone who's been doing that so far. Well, January was a bit of a quiet month for me because all the boxing had been cancelled, and I did a few videos on football. There's nothing really happening. February now though is looking a much better month because next week boxing is back, more UFC's coming back, and it's looking a lot better. Also, rugby's back. The Six Nations tournament that was cancelled last year. I'm buzzing for this because I really do like rugby, and I really like the Six Nations and the World Cup. And the Autumn Nations was pretty good to watch as well last October sort of time. So what I'm going to do is another one of my kind of long talking prediction videos, because I really do enjoy doing these, talking about the teams, giving my thoughts on who I think is going to win, and so all I'm going to do is just break down the teams first, and then I'm going to break down round by round and then give a tale on who I think is going to win. So let's have a look. I think we'll start off with probably the favourites, and probably the best team in the competition, which is France. They've been playing some very, very good rugby recently, especially since they won't have to deal with the same restrictions in the Six Nations as they would have had to in the Autumn Nations. And so they are definitely one to watch. They're very tough to plan for. They have probably the best defensive coach in the competition as well. Although they do lack discipline whenever they seem to play, their lack of discipline in the game and whether they can find it will determine their potential success. Red cards, missed passes, they've always been a problem for the French squad, and sometimes that has led them to throw away games. So I think whether they can deal with that will determine their success. But overall, I think France, given their form recently, they're a very exciting team and potential to have the tightest matches. They really do. Now, if we look at Wales, bit of a kind of not much happening with the Wales team. It'll be interesting to see what Williams' leadership does, but all honesty, I think Williams is really, he's done. He's way past his best. Jones is also past his best. Wales need some new talent in their team to re-strengthen their squad, because they've made some very strange choices to their new team for this tournament. There's some names in there that I don't recognise at all, but maybe Wayne Pivac has got some kind of mad plan up his sleeve. Wales could damage anyone's game in this tournament, depending on which Wales is going to turn up, because at this point we don't know. I just think though, personally, that competition's a bit too strong for them to kind of get in that top three bracket, I'd say. I think Wales are being more experimental, whereas others are being more consistent. Teams such as Ireland were really consistent in the Autumn Nations, whereas Wales seem to have this very kind of experimental sort of thing they're doing to their game, which I don't really understand. They could pick up a few wins here and there, especially, if we look at what Wales are capable of as an underdog. We all remember that, World Cup game in which Wales overcame France to reach the semi-finals. We saw it in the Six Nations in 2019 when they got a win over France. So I'd say not a huge threat, but there are potentials for some upsets in there as well. Not sleeping on them, but I don't think they'll prove too much of a threat to the top branch of the competition. And now look at Italy. I mean, Italy is Italy, innit? Poor little Italy. The most likely to finish bottom of the group and get the wooden spoon. I can't see them finishing any other position, to be honest. They don't really pose any challenge. They haven't made that many squad improvements. They've got a tough beginning because they're at Wales and then they face England, which will be very tough. In all honesty, I don't see them picking up any points at all in the tournament. I really don't. Someone's got to come last, so Italy they're just the weaker squad. That's all that needs to be said in it, really. Then we'll look at Ireland. Ireland don't travel well for their away games, but they are again potential underdogs of this tournament. I don't think they're quite up to the mark as they have been. They weren't the same threat that they were back in 2018, for example. Although their game against Scotland in the Autumn Nations springs to mind, as that game was very, very boring. though they thought they would have taken that game pretty well because, it's something one that they potentially could have won. Maybe they could prove tough against France or England, but for me, they just lack a bit of consistency in that squad. And I think those two teams, England and France, are they've got more strength for Ireland to deal with. Maybe Ireland can get a victory over Wales initially, but then they face France immediately after, I think. I'll have to look in the rounds, which again is a very tough game. So, but then they've got Italy, I think, I think Italy's their third game. So it's like there's pretty good balance there. Now Scotland is the next team. They're another one which don't travel well, but I'd say Scotland are probably the most improved side in the tournament. They're an exciting new team. They've got young players. They've added really well. They've made improvements. They've made adjustments. I'm really liking what Scotland are doing right now. Sexton might not be fit for the Wales game, but it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. Having Finn Russell in their side is certainly a good option. And they've got Stuart Hogg as their captain this time, and Jamie Ritchie, I believe, as the vice captain. I'm just gutted I'm not going to see Laidlaw anymore, to be honest. Laidlaw is my favourite Scottish player of all time, and I really liked him. But they have got, again, exciting new players like Jaco van der Walt, Duncan Wire, and much like France, Scotland are hard to plan for. You never really know which Scotland team's going to turn up. The first game is against England at Twickenham, which will be a tough one for them. And then I think they're against Wales after that, which again that's definitely a winnable game. But you never know. Wales might fancy it after they've had their game to Ireland, especially if they've lost to Ireland. But I think Scotland will pick up wins against Italy, and they have potential to get some wins against Ireland and Wales. So it's 50-50 for me, but because I think they will face defeats against the bigger teams, England and France. Now, if we look at England definitely have the best game plan, arguably the best coach as well. I think that they have got so much talent in their squad this year. Owen Farrell, great leader for the competition. He's a very good point scorer. He was the top point scorer at the Autumn Nations with 46 points, I believe, which is double the highest of the second highest lad, who I think was Billy Burns for Ireland, got 23 points, which is, a canny good statistic to see at least. Jamie George is another one I'm a big fan of. He got 3 tries at the Autumn Nations. Only one of the lad tied it. There's a Fiji lad who tied with him for that. And then you've got Johnny May, who got 2 tries at the Autumn Nations. There's quite a few who got 2 tries, but that's still, having those types of scorers in your squad is going to prove very, very useful. George Ford is good too. He's starting at the weekend. I'm excited to see what Ollie Lawrence brings to the squad. There's so much talent in there, and I really do think they have the potential to go all the way. My only gripe with England would be I'd like to see some more new, younger talent. Jack Willis, I'd like to see get in the squad a bit more. He's good. He also plays for Wasps, who are the Premier League team I like. Also, Sam Simmons is not in there this year. He's been scoring loads of tries for fun in the Premiership. His brother Joe hasn't received his England call-up yet. But that just shows how much talent England have, not just now, but in the future, for them to bring to these competitions. So I think England will be the most confident team in the group. And as winners of the Autumn Nations, you've got to kind of lean towards them. I rate Eddie Jones a lot as a coach, and I'm excited to see the rugby they play. They are at home for the first 2 matches against Scotland and Italy, which are certainly winnable. They're the team I support and the team I really hope pick up a win. But let's have a look at the rounds for now. So round 1, we've got Italy against France, England against Scotland, Wales against Ireland. I think it's fair to say that France will be getting an early victory there. Again, England, Scotland against Twickenham. Scotland might be up for that. So if someone was to lean towards Scotland to win that, I wouldn't completely pass on it, but I'm going to give it to England just because of the sheer strength of their squad. That could be a very, very exciting match though. And then Wales against Ireland, which I'm going to go Ireland to get that one. As much as they don't travel well, I do think that Wales will just be too unprepared, given the number of experiments and changes they're trying in their squad. Yeah, they won't be able to deal with that one. Round 2, I've got England against Italy, Scotland against Wales, and Ireland against France. So I'd say that's another win for England. Scotland against Wales. Again, if you were to say Wales winning that, possibly, but I'm going to go with Scotland. It's Scotland at Murrayfield, and Scotland at Murrayfield is one of the hardest games in the competition. You know, I think even England struggle to win at Murrayfield from time to time. And then Ireland against France, I'm going to go with France because that French team is just frightening. They are a threat to anyone. So, yeah, England, Scotland and France to get victories round 2. Some potential bonus points available there as well. Round 3, you've got Italy against Ireland, Wales, England and France against Scotland. I think that's an Ireland victory. Ireland's second one, another third win on the bounce for England, and a win for France over Scotland. Again, Scotland don't travel too well, and against that French team over there, it's just going to be bloody hard to beat. Again, England sometimes don't travel too well, but I think against this Wales team, I think England have got it in the bag. I just think they will just prove too much for them. Wales, again, there's a potential upset there, but I don't see it personally. I don't know. Round 4, this one has got Italy versus Wales, England against France, and Scotland Ireland. This is the round for me which will decide this competition, I reckon. That England-France game has the potential to completely, to decide the winner. Italy against Wales, I'm going to go with Wales. I think that's Wales' first win, yeah. And Scotland Ireland, again, Ireland away, don't travel too well, and I just think Scotland at Murrayfield are very, very strong. That England-France game at Twickenham though, I'm struggling, really struggling. I want to give it to England. I'm going to give it to France. Should I? I've made my decision now, I'm going to stick with it. And round 5, Scotland against Italy, Ireland against England, and France against Wales. I'm going to give that a Scotland victory, an England victory, and a France victory. So overall, much like the Football Premier League, it is a very, very open tournament this year. I do think there's a potential for a Grand Slam for France if they win it. However, again, if England get that win over France in round 4, I think there's a potential Grand Slam for England as well. Those two are the big dogs in there. They're also my two favourites, obviously, in terms of who I think is going to win. I don't see Ireland or Wales making it to the top 2 at all, and I do think Scotland are just a little bit off the mark to challenge for the top as well. But I think they've done enough to prove enough of a challenge over the lower teams. Scotland will capitalise on games such as Ireland and Wales due to their weaknesses, and Wales again could be a deciding team. They've got key games. They've got a game against England, a game against Italy, and then a game against France. That Italian win might give them a confidence boost going into the last one. Who knows? So I'll give if I was to do a table off the top of my head, I would go number 1, France. I don't want to, but number 1, France. 2, England. Number 3, Scotland. 4, Ireland. 5, Wales. 6, Italy. Yeah. Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Italy. Yeah. So it is going to be a very exciting tournament, and I'm just buzzing to see rugby back. I can't wait to start watching them. I may even do a follow-up video reviewing the Six Nations if I enjoy it that much, and if it goes the way I want it to, which is hopefully the right way. But thanks for watching this video, and it's going to be really good. Let me know what you guys think. Winners, losers. Heart says England. Head says France. Scotland to finish in 3rd place. Peace.